We're having a debate. Debate is over the proposition, what the world needs now is nuclear energy. True or false? And before we have the debate, I'd like to actually take a show of hands. On balance right now, are you for or against this? So those who are yes, raise your hand. For. Okay, hands down. Those who are against, raise your hands. Okay, I'm reading that at about 75-25 in favor at the start, which means, we're going to take a vote at the end and see how that shifts, if at all. So here's the format. They're going to have 6 minutes each, and then after one little quick exchange between them, I want two people on each side of this debate in the audience to have 30 seconds to make one short, crisp, pungent, powerful point. So in favor of the proposition, possibly shockingly, is one of truly the founders of the environmental movement, a long-standing TEDster, the founder of the Whole Earth Catalog, someone we all know and love, Stuart Brand.
Whoa. Saying is that with climate, those who know the most are the most worried. With nuclear, those who know the most are the least worried. A classic example is James Hansen, a NASA climatologist pushing for 350 parts per million carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, came out with a wonderful book recently called Storms of My Grandchildren. And Hansen is hard over for nuclear power, as are most climatologists who are engaging this issue seriously. This is the design situation, a planet that is facing climate change and is now half urban. Look at the client base for this. 5 out of 6 of us live in the developing world. We are moving to cities, we are moving up in the world, and we are educating our kids, having fewer kids, basically good news all around. But we move to cities toward the bright lights, and one of the things that is there that we want, besides jobs, is electricity. And if it isn't easily gotten, we'll go ahead and steal it. This is one of the most desired things by poor people all over the world, in the cities and in the countryside. Electricity for cities, at its best, is what's called baseload electricity. That's where it is on all the time. And so far, there are only 3 major sources of that: coal and gas, hydroelectric, which in most places is maxed out, and nuclear. I would love to have something in the 4th place here, but in terms of constant, clean, scalable energy, nuclear and wind and the other renewables aren't there yet because they're inconstant. Nuclear is and has been for 40 years. Now, from an environmentalist standpoint, the main thing you want to look at is what happens to the waste from nuclear and from coal, the 2 major sources of electricity. If all of your electricity in your lifetime came from nuclear, the waste from that lifetime of electricity would go in a Coke can, pretty heavy Coke can, about 2 pounds. But 1 day of coal adds up to one hell of a lot of carbon dioxide at a normal 1 gigawatt coal-fired plant. Then what happens to the waste? The nuclear waste typically goes into a dry cask storage out back of the parking lot at the reactor site, because most places don't have underground storage yet, just as well, because it can stay where it is. But all the carbon dioxide, vast quantities of it, gigatons, goes into the atmosphere where we can't get it back yet, and where it is causing the problems that we're most concerned about. So when you add up the greenhouse gases in the lifetime of these various energy sources, nuclear is down there with wind and hydro, below solar, and way below, obviously, all the fossil fuels. Wind is wonderful. I love wind. I love being around these big wind generators. But one of the things we're discovering is that wind, like solar, is an actually relatively dilute source of energy. And so it takes a very large footprint on the land, a very large footprint in terms of materials, 5 to 10 times what you use for nuclear. And typically, to get 1 gigawatt of electricity is on the order of 250 square miles of wind farm. In places like Denmark and Germany, they've maxed out on wind already. They've run out of good sites. The power lines are getting overloaded, and you peak out. Likewise with solar, especially here in California, we're discovering that the 80 solar farm schemes that are going forward want to basically bulldoze 1,000 square miles of Southern California desert. Well, as an environmentalist, we would rather that didn't happen. It's okay on frapped out agricultural land. Solar is wonderful on rooftops. But out in the landscape, 1 gigawatt is on the order of 50 square miles of bulldozed desert. When you add all these things up, Saul Griffith did the numbers and figured out what it would take to get 13 clean terawatts of energy from wind, solar, and biofuels. And that area would be roughly the size of the United States, an area he refers to as Renewistan. The guy who's added it up all this very well is David Mackay, physicist in England, and in his wonderful book, Sustainable Energy, among other things, he says, I'm not trying to be pro-nuclear, I'm just pro-arithmetic. In terms of weapons, the best disarmament tool so far is nuclear energy. We have been taking down the Russian warheads, turning it into electricity. 10% of American electricity comes from decommissioned warheads. We haven't even started on the American stockpile. I think of most interest to the TED audience would be a new generation of reactors that are very small, down around 10 to 125 megawatts. This is one from Toshiba. Here's one the Russians are already building, floats on a barge, and that will be very interesting in the developing world. Typically, these things are put in the ground. They're referred to as nuclear batteries. They're incredibly safe, weapons proliferation proof, and the rest of it. Here's a commercial version from New Mexico called the Hyperion, and another one from Oregon called NuScale. Babcock and Wilcox, who make nuclear reactors. Here's an integral fast reactor. Thorium reactor, the nation Mervold's involved in. The governments of the world are going to have to decide that coal is need to be made expensive, and these will go ahead. And here's the future.
Okay.